Hi, guys. Hello, everyone looking or watching this podcast. Welcome to Grit Meets Growth. Today, we're joined by Chris McFee, founder of Forward Editing and Proofreading, a company specializing in professional editing and proofreading services. We're excited to hear about Chris' journey and how he's helping clients refine their written work. Welcome, Chris. Once again, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Oh, hello, Manav. And yes, thank you very much for having me.
Great. We'll just dive right in. And I'll obviously start with the first question, which is the one that we have for everyone, which is how did you decide and how did you make a decision of starting an editing and proofreading service business?
Okay, well, I just spent the last 30 years as a police officer with the Vancouver Police Department. Now, the question I get a lot is how on earth does a career in policing translate to a career in editing? Well, throughout my career, I got great feedback on my writing. I was always a strong writer. And as I went along, I, at certain points, became kind of an informal editor for a lot of my peers. So I was in a section called the Financial Crime Unit where we dealt with frauds and embezzlements, that kind of thing. And as a result, we had to write complicated reports and complicated warrants, for people's accounts, that kind of thing. So my peers started to come to me to vet their warrants, to make sure that they were written well, that they flowed well, that they were understandable, and that they would have, maximum impact. And that kind of continued as I went through my career. I mentored people in report writing, and I continued to do sort of the proofreading and the editing of various reports. And again, I continued to get positive feedback on my writing. So as I was coming close to the end of my career, I thought, well, what do I want to do now? Like, what are my strengths? And I thought, well, I could do some consulting work, and that's typically where we typically go with that. And I decided, no, I don't want to do that. I'm done. I've had a great career, but I'm kind of done with this profession. I'm done with this part of my life. It's not that I was burned out or jaded or anything like that. I just thought I just wanted to try something new, something different. And I'd never explored my entrepreneurial side before. So I thought, okay, well, what are my strengths? And I thought, well, writing, definitely, editing, certainly. So I did some research and I took an online course just to see if, well, maybe just to see if this was for me, right? And I decided, yes, definitely. This is something I would certainly like to do. I can work from home. I don't have to do the 9 to 5 grind. I don't have to commute because in Vancouver, you have to drive everywhere. You definitely need a car, and traffic is bad. So I thought, you know what, there'll be a lot of strengths. I can do this from home. I can have clients anywhere in the world, and you know what, I can meet people anywhere, and this would be a tremendous growth experience. So I left the Vancouver Police Department in June of 2022. I say left or transitioned. I don't like to use the word retired yet. I'm still in my mid 50s, so seems a little early. And yeah, transitioned into a career in editing and got my business started.
That's amazing, right? Like, who can imagine from the first question that you had, you went into editing. But yeah, that's an interesting story. And
Thanks.
obviously, right, like everyone has their own story, and
Mm-hmm.
every story is interesting in a way. But this is really something unconventional, which makes it even more sort of interesting, right? So great.
Right.
Cool, right? So then obviously, right, with every business there comes challenges. That's how every business, or I shouldn't even say with business, with everything, right? There are challenges, right? Even with the
Sure.
job, there are challenges. But if you specifically talk about your business, what have been the biggest challenges that you would have faced, and how did you tackle those?
I think with a lot of businesses, it's getting up and running and getting a client base. It's marketing yourself effectively so that you can get regular work. So yeah, that and actually, sort of piggybacking on that, it's a very, very competitive field. I knew that going in, but I realized that I was going to have to really do try to market myself a little bit more effectively. And I knew it would take time. I'm in this business now for 2.5 years, and I know that it's going to take a little bit more time to establish a solid client base and establish a solid reputation in the editing community. So still a work in progress.
Obviously it is, right? Like obviously there will be new challenges, and the biggest sort of thing is to understand and create a clientele initially, which helps sort of create that baseline, and obviously then the next sort of challenges come in.
Mm-hmm.
Great. So since you talked about marketing, since you talked about like getting new clients, what are the biggest sort of revenue driving channels for you? Like when I say channels, I mean everything. So what are the different avenues from where you get your clients right now? Maybe if you can define it in a percentage base, like let's say one channel contributes to 25%, the other 30%, some sort of that form, so that anyone who is looking to start their business, they know that these are those avenues that they need to work on to get those clients.
Right. Okay. So I'll start sort of, I won't say old school or old fashioned, but first is in-person networking. So you're a member of BNI, and I joined BNI in November of 2022. And so the in-person networking aspect of it, I find very valuable. I've also joined our local Chamber of Commerce, and I have my own networks as well, like say a men's group that I'm a part of. So my own personal and professional networks definitely are a big source. And the nice thing about, say, BNI is I can talk to people anywhere in the world and have clients from all over the world. Say I'm not, say, like a plumber who is, confined to a certain area, like say the Lower Mainland, or what we call the Greater Vancouver area. I can have clients anywhere. Of course, it's easier to convince somebody that they need a plumber rather than they need an editor, but that's something else. So that's one avenue, is the personal networking. The other one is online. So I have a presence on LinkedIn. I have gotten work that way, and I also am on Upwork as well, and I've gotten clients through that as well. Which is actually good because sometimes it lets me build social proof. Sometimes, I know that I have to be fairly discerning with Upwork because people tend to want the lowest price, and sometimes it's simply, well, I don't want to use the term "not worth my time," but it's not value for me necessarily. But on the other hand, I can get testimonials out of it and use that as social proof to build my business. And so I can go online, I can go to my LinkedIn profile, I can go to my website, I can put them there, and that helps build the social proof for me.
Like, do you run ads on any platforms like Google Ads or anything?
No, I haven't looked into that yet. I have to also be cognizant of the fact that, well, I do need to there's a cash outlay. There are so many places I can subscribe to, and so many subscriptions that, so many things that in a year that someone has to pay for, that I have to be discerning and strategic with where I'm allocating my money. Because editing, it's good, but it's probably not the most lucrative profession that you can go into. And with editing, my work week is actually fairly limited, because when I'm working, I'm looking at every single word, every single punctuation mark on the page. That's very exhausting. So really, I can only truly work for about 5 hours in a day. So that sort of limits my earning potential. So as I said, so that means I have to be fairly discerning with what platforms I go onto and what my monthly expenditures are.
Got it. Makes sense. Okay, cool, right? Like obviously we talked about BNI, but if you can just give a, let's say 30-second sort of a understanding of BNI for our members, because most of these people that will be seeing won't know about BNI. So if you can
Okay,
just set up small sort of context for them.
sure. BNI stands for Business Network International, and it is a worldwide referral organization. They There are chapters in, well, most major cities in the world. I think BNI has something like, what is
80
it?
plus countries right
80
now. They're
plus
in 80
countries,
countries.
yes. And yeah, so what they are then is they're a networking group where people will get together for weekly meetings. Now, these could be in-person meetings or they could be online via Zoom. And the idea is to build relationships with a group of people so that they will refer your business. They'll not only use your to themselves, so they'll use your businesses, but they'll also refer once they'll also refer that bit you to an outside person, someone that outside of the organization. So when it takes a little bit of while to build up trust within the organization, once that's done, they'll refer you to other people, and that's sort of how you build your business with BNI.
Great. So since you're talking about BNI, like if you can just let us know what sort of impact, obviously you talked about that BNI brings in business, but let's say some other impacts or some of the other things that you have got from BNI, since you are now a BNI member for like close to 2 years now. So if you can just highlight that a bit.
You know what? BNI is not just for me a place where I'm going to get business. I also look at it as a personal growth endeavor. So I get to learn from some very successful business owners. And I also find on a personal level, a lot of them they're self-starters. They have a great deal of energy. They're very business savvy and they're nice people. And I just feel like I grow as a person getting to know them. A lot of them are into personal development. A lot of them have certain, different philosophies about life. And we meet each other socially outside as well. Like one of the things about BNI is that you have to get together with at least one person in your network every week. That is mandatory. And so you'll usually want to do more than one because the more times you get together with somebody, the more business you'll generate. They're called one-to-ones, right? Have to do at least one a week. But it's just good to get out and talk and learn from other people. And so I feel like, at this stage of my life, rather than just doing nothing and not growing as a person, I feel like I have engaged on a journey of personal growth with this organization. It's made me a better person, I think, in the time I've been
That's
with
so
it.
true. That's so true. Great. Now, moving on to the next one, right, which is when it comes to marketing. Obviously, you mentioned LinkedIn, you mentioned Upwork, but apart from that, like, on a general basis, when it comes to, let's say, if you specifically talk about LinkedIn, right? So, what's your strategy in terms of um, keeping people aware about what you do and how you do it so that people can contact you and maybe become some potential clients? So if you can just talk about your marketing strategy.
Sure. Posting so on at least what I hope is a regular basis. So so they know that I'm there. Commenting on other people's posts, not just liking. Like one of the things about you have to make your network aware that you are around. Because the thing about LinkedIn is that I think a lot of people send out these invites and then, well, you're in the network now and you're just buried in 500 or 1,000 plus people, within their network. So they're not necessarily going to know who you are. So getting, either a couple of people, my contacts on LinkedIn who I comment on regularly. And these are people who could possibly give me work later on, or my comments are seen by people who could possibly give me work later on. Also making sure I keep my projects up to date, the major projects that I do, so that people can see that I'm working, they can see what I'm working on, and they can see that I'm active. They see I'm actually running the business.
Yeah, that's really helpful advice because people definitely are there on LinkedIn, and obviously these are some of those things that they need to do as well when it comes to sort of starting or creating LinkedIn as a channel for your sales. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Moving on to the next question, right, which is like what is one or maybe two advice that you would like to give to younger, let's say, aspiring entrepreneurs that are looking to start a business of their own? What would you like them to know?
Well, first off, do your research. So you may have a great idea, but look at the market. Look at how much competition is out there. And do you have, obviously you're going to develop a plan, you're going to develop a SWOT analysis, but just take a serious look at the, not just the opportunity, but look at the threats as well. Look at how your industry might change over time, and look at, how your competition might impact your ability to get to a point where you can earn a living with it. I'm actually quite fortunate because I have a pension from my last job, so I don't have that pressure to put food on the table with my entrepreneurial venture. And no, it's not a hobby, but it's something. But again, it's nice to have that pressure off. So yeah, because one of the things about so you look at the competition, but you also have to look at what technological change is going to do. So one of the things about an editor is I have to look at AI. Well, I think everybody just about has to look at AI, but in my particular instance, there are a lot of programs that are coming out that can emulate the work of an editor. And it's a matter of, well, it could end up eventually taking business away from me. I think it's at that point a little bit right now. Like, for example, Grammarly. Grammarly is actually a really good program. And if you don't want to hire an editor, I would recommend using it. I mean, I do use it as in my work as well, as sort of a cherry on top, sort of is the final touch when I'm editing. I go look at it, and it'll basically, I'm not perfect, so it will catch those very few things, that stray comma, that stray punctuation mark perhaps that I've missed as I've gone through the editing process. It just ensures I'm doing the highest quality work for my clients. But of course we're looking at other programs, and I'll just say ChatGPT is one of them, and just how sophisticated they are and how they can write. That certainly, it can be looked to be a threat to my business, because I don't know where it's going to be in 5 years, and I don't know if anybody else does either. Yeah, so I mean, right now it can't take the place of a human editor necessarily. There always should be a human in the process. I see a lot of AI content out there that's like, yep, I could definitely make that better. That's one of the things I do is humanize AI content.
So,
yeah, but yeah, so look at the threats and just see if this, be a realistic appraisal. Is this actually going to be feasible?
true. That's so true. Cool. I'll just move to the next part of the podcast, which is sort of the second last sort of a part of it, which is, so basically what we do is every guest that's on the show gives a question that he wants to ask the next guest. So for you, one of the questions that the last guest had is, if you're looking to start a business, what kind of things are you looking for that are going to tell you, is this a good idea to start this business, or this is a bad idea? Should I repeat
I
that?
think I answered that with the last question. As I said, you have to do the SWOT analysis, and then you have to have a very, very objective look at the threats, because everybody likes to see their opportunities. And you, again, with the SWOT analysis, take a look at your weaknesses. Take a look at your personal weaknesses too. Like, dig deep into yourself and say, really, like, how would I operate? How do I approach problems? Is that something that's going to hamper the business? Maybe get some counseling. Get an objective third opinion as to what this business is. Talk to someone in the business and ask them what they think. See if you can get a realistic appraisal for someone who's been in the business a while.
That's got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. So similarly, I would also like you to give us a question which we should ask the next guest.
I think I'm going to ask something maybe a little bit more. It's a good one. It puts me on the spot a little bit. Let's see. One of the things I like to ask people, just to get more of an inspiring message from them and to learn a little bit from them, is, what is the greatest challenge your business has faced, and how did you overcome it?
For sure. That's the question for our next guest. We have that noted, and we'll definitely ask this to the next one. Um, but Chris, thanks a lot for doing this. Thanks a lot for taking out your time and sharing all these insights with us. Uh, I guess that's majorly what I had for this one. But I guess all the viewers that are going to have a look at it will get to know a lot more about you as well as the business, and the learnings that you've shared should be quite helpful for them. So thanks a lot for doing this.